A warm welcome to our viewers in Goa, India and abroad to Breaking Barriers Through Dialogue. This program is brought to you by CCR TV. And today we shift the spotlight to crimes against children, which sometimes does not get the attention it deserves. Through this dialogue, we hope to broaden our understanding of the problem and hopefully come up with solutions to what is a very complex and vexed issue. And our panel for today is, on my right we have Auda Vegas, a woman activist of repute and long-standing and president of Bailanso Equot. On my left here we have Father Maverick Fernandez, who is the director of Childline and brings a lot of experience to the table. We have Sainora Tellis Lard, president of the Children's Court. She's at the center of the whole thing and she brings a vast experience in the judiciary to the table. Advocate Kautuk Raikar is a young criminal defense lawyer. He's in many ways on the other side of the fence, but his experience and what he has to say is very important because it balances everything that we're trying to do here today. So I'd like to go to Auda Vegas first. Auda, can you give us your experience of these, crimes against children, and explain to us whether it takes place across all classes, or is it restricted only to the bottom?
We, Bailanso Equot, have been working for crimes against women and children for the past 30 years. Over the past 30 years, my experience of the type of crime also has changed. To your question about whether it is restricted to certain type of people, I would say that everybody is miserably affected, whether it is from the houses with thick walls or what we call migrants. All the children living in Goa get affected by this, and over the past 2 years, because of the pandemic and the use of the online transactions that had to take place for studies and other matters, crime increased. And crime increased to such an extent that we at Bailanso Equot have a bank for baby clothes. The pregnancies had increased, and child pregnancies and a child giving birth to a child did not have any preparation, and last minute they were taken to the hospital, so we have to supply them with even baby clothes for the deliveries. So I would say that crimes in the past few years have increased against children. The reasons we could talk about later.
Yeah, I'll go now to Father Maverick, who will bring. Father, tell us, now when we say crimes against children, but this crime it's a very broad term, So what crimes are we really looking at? Can you just give us an idea?
Under Childline, because we run 3 Childline units, one in the whole of North Goa, then at Mapsa bus stand, and at the railway station. The spectrum of cases about abuse of children that come in, apart from physical abuse, there's this child begging cases that come to us. There are child labor cases, runaway cases, a maximum at the railway station. But there are also child abuse, sexual abuse cases that come to us. So there are different spectrum of cases that we handle through this Childline. Incidentally, Childline from the NGO sector will be closed down by the 30th of June. The government is assuming the responsibility for that. But up till now, what we can say is the issues of vulnerability of children is increasing, and that does not limit only to the marginalized sections. Vulnerability is across all strata of the society of children.
Advocate Kautuk, what is your experience? I mean, we are talking about a large spectrum of cases, but generally when people understand, when you say crimes against children, the focus goes to sexual abuse and maybe physical abuse. But what I see from some of the statistics is that missing children and kidnapped children is in fact a huge number from there, both at Goa level as well as the India level. You know? So could you throw some light on your experiences on this subject?
See, when we are speaking about this topic, child abuse, we need to understand what is child abuse first. Now, basically, child abuse means physical abuse, it could be psychological abuse, it could be sexual abuse. There's one more sector which we are not aware about is maltreatment. A neglected child can also amount to abusing that particular child. Now, coming to the child abuse, now to protect the dignity of the child, the Goa government came up with this act called the Goa Children's Act, and it was enacted in 2003. Goa was the first state to come up with this idea or to come up with this act in the entire nation. And after implementing Goa Children's Act, the Protection of Child from Sexual Offences Act came into enactment. So by way of this act, I think so the judiciary has done a tremendous job in coming with a heavy hand on the abusers, basically. A very heavy hand, a very stringent punishment were imposed on the wrongdoers. Secondly, what we need to look into is, when we are speaking about child abuse, there are two things to this. There is a child who has been abused. On the other hand, it is the accused or the abuser. Now, to take care of the person who has abused that particular child, we have the law. What about the child who has gone through this? The question is, what are we doing for the betterment or to protect the dignity of that particular child? The best that we can do is to provide an environment for that particular child, in which environment that child is comfortable. Basically, what I'm trying to speak about is awareness of the child rights. Now, this had to start first from their homes itself. Secondly, the most important thing is we need to make the educational institutions aware about these things. We need to promote some awareness programs in the schools to know the child, to inform the child that so and so are your rights and so things can happen with you, and what are the awarenesses that you need to take care to take in those particular circumstances.
You're taking up from what he said, Sayonara, is that what I've seen from the statistics and all that, about maybe 90 or 95% of the cases, the child is generally abused by someone known or someone from the family. Okay, so many of these cases obviously come to you, you know. So what is your experience?
Yes, as rightly pointed out, that children are in fact vulnerable, and with this act it says that the children are protected and always the best interest of the child is taken care of. Now, first of all, we need to know that in the children's court, which children are getting this benefit of the act. So the victims, that is a child under the act, is a child who has not completed 18 years of age. So those cases come to the children's court. Whereas even in POCSO cases, when the child has not completed 16 years of age, these cases come to the children's court.
But just interrupt, since you brought up that issue of definition. No? There's an issue of definition of what a child. It keeps varying, I notice. It's 18
Yes.
years for some, for rape it's 16 years, for
Yes.
child labor it's 14 years, and on the IPC again it's 18 years. So why this variance? I mean, does it make it more difficult for the judiciary or for all of them who are working at the grassroots level?
So that basically is as per what the legislation has given us. And every child for under labor, as it is the child who has not completed 14 years cannot be employed. So the child has to be in school. That is the time the child needs to be educated, needs to go to school. So probably that is, I think, one of the reason why the particular age for this labor court is there.
Something I'd like to ask both Father Maverick and Audha is child labor still happening in Goa?
Of course.
at the domestic level, domestic servants and all?
course.
Is it still happening, and why is it still happening?
I have rescued a number of children below the age of 14 working in as domestic help in homes, and I feel sad to tell you that their hands looked older than mine. A 13-year-old child's hands looked older than mine, so much so they were not allowed to interact with their families, they were not given the payment on time, and they were housebound and housework right from 5:30 in the morning till 12 at night. Now I could not understand how these little children were made to work for their own children who are going to school. The 13-year-old who's working for them would prepare chapatis so that 13-year-old theirs could go to school, pack her bags, give her shoes and all. So we had tough time rescuing these children and then calling their relatives back from home or sending them with an escort from here back home. Mostly they were from Jharkhand, Orissa and other places where vulnerability exists, poverty exists, and they have no options, and we were not giving them any options. So I feel that it exists, and tea shops, if you go even now, or where slaughterhouses, or wherever, any place of work, you will find a child, even in dangerous circumstances. Like where frying is going on, you're not supposed to employ a child, because it's a risk to his life, but it's happening.
What's your experience? I mean, is this happening because the police are not doing enough, or is it that there are too few people on the ground to actually go out and find out what is going on at various places?
See, my point of view, or if you ask my opinion, basically I look at it in this manner. The people who are employed at this state, at this level, they are mostly struck by poverty. So their basic thing is survival. So what do they do for survival? There's no money to educate them. There's no money for their medical needs. There's no money for the food. So basically what happens is they are thrown or they are pushed to such an extent that that is the only measure for them for the survival. And that is how these kids land up into basically working at a very young age. I've even seen 9-year-old child working at a place. So basically what we need to see is our administrative structure or the government needs to look into this. Because until and unless the administration, judiciary and the government works hands in hand, this problem of child labor will never be solved.
What do you think, Father? I mean, he's in some, in a very oblique way, almost supporting child labor, because he explained why the conditions and other. So what's your opinion? Do you think, okay, in some cases, you could allow it, or should there just be a blanket ban so that we can start at that point and then tackle the problem?
See, a child needs to have their rights as a child. The primary right of a child is to be in school for education. Kautuk has also said that the government has to look into this, because there are laws which are asking the government to implement this law, that the child should complete an education. Having said that, there are situations in family who, in spite of school, also get into work. We've had in childline cases where we found young boys who went into, at the age of 16, working in some shops, working in some hotels. When we questioned them, he said, I'm making up money for 1 year so that I can pursue my education higher. My parents are unable to do this to me. At least I'm working and making money so that I can pursue this. In such circumstances, what we do is, we ask for the regulation of work for these children, that they may have proper time of sleep, not beyond 8 hours. Then the conditions of work should not be very hazardous to them. These are things which we insist with the employer afterwards, to see that at least they are able to make that money so that they can go and pursue their education. So this is what happens.
So are you referring to children who are below 14 years?
No, below 18 years.
Below 18 years. But that's
Above
allowed.
14 years.
Between
No,
14
but
and
14
8.
means, like, if 14 is allowed, there should not be hazardous circumstances.
Okay.
So that is what we ensure, that they are not overworked.
So below 14 is definitely out.
I'd
You
like
have
to
something?
say
Yes,
something,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
The Right to Education Act casts a responsibility on every existing school in the locality which is close to bastis and all, to find out how many children are in school and how many are not. That's not being done. We have still not implemented the Right to Education Act, which came in force long ago. And any national act that comes has to be implemented in the state. So how many schools are taking these impoverished children? The good schools, they want children with a standard to get a class for themselves, a ranking. So they don't look at it from the needs that are for these vulnerable children. I feel something needs to be done there.
Just to also,
Yes,
no, see, I was referring to this hazardous circumstances situation where they work. We had some children who were working in slaughterhouses. This local piggery, this thing.
Okay.
Now that is a very hazardous situation for someone who's even above 14. You know. We complained because they were already in a hazard. They were above 14, but in a hazardous circumstance. We complained to the police. Nothing moved on as far as the law is concerned. That had to be ensured. No?
Have you tried working with the Labour Department?
The Labour Department records zero, nil, because we have had interactions with them as Childline to say that to ask for cases which are registered on child labour, zero. It was very unfortunate that I, along with the secretary, had to represent in Delhi for one meeting, and Goa showed as zero child labour, and people were hailing us because on our statistics were zero.
I'll just put a small question to this. Now, in this situation, now who is the person, or who is the person to be blamed? Is it the employer who has employed that child? Is it the parents of the child who is sending that child for the work? Or is it the
Go ahead.
or is it the government or the administrative authority that even after knowing this thing is not taking any action on this?
You better come in on this side. Tell us, what is the law and what is this? He's talking about a social problem. And there are areas in India which are very impoverished, and those people move
Yes.
out, even the children.
Because
move
why I
out and all that,
put why I put this question, because what happens, operation is done basically regarding child labor. Directly the person at whose place this child is employed, he's taken into custody and put behind the bars. But now the question arises, how that child ended up over there?
There are agents operating in Goa who bring children from outside and supply them to people. There should be a crackdown on the people or agents are bringing in children. See, these children are poor. My whole heart is with them. But that does not mean that we need to abuse these children. Even those who bring the children to their homes, do they ensure that the child gets time to play? That the child gets time to go to school? Do they teach anything to the child? Do we not have a social responsibility?
If I could add,
As
So I don't know. Okay, you
as
tell
per
us the law and what cases you handled. Yes.
The child rights says that the child has to go to school. Education is very important. But yes, as Kautuk says, that it is difficult because the parents can't afford sending the child to school, and finance is the problem. So in that case, something is required to be done. Now we have got a lot of homes, protective homes and all that. So in some such type of institution could be started where those deserving can be kept there.
And there's a provision in every state that if the parents cannot look after the children, there is a sponsorship scheme, there's foster care scheme, and there are homes where if you can't look after a child, you put the child in the home and the state government has to look after it. It's the next parent.
to my worry, if I'll just take
Okay,
2 seconds.
say yes.
To my worry, the thing is, till date, how many cases of child labor have been registered? At least what I've dealt with, not a single trafficking racket has been busted.
Yes.
It is only the employer who's behind the bars.
Exactly. I agree with you.
Okay,
I
so
agree
this is the
with you.
problem with the police and with maybe the state government, but it's basically quite a complex sort of problem.
I'm not
Situation.
supporting child
Yeah,
labor,
but
but are we catching the right persons?
Yeah, agents,
that is
that's
the
what I
that is
said.
the question.
Nobody is cracking down on the agents.
Exactly.
They are making loads of money at the cost of these families. In every trafficking, that's the same thing.
Now, according to the National Crime Bureau, there have been about 167 cases of child crime against children. That was in 2019. It came down to 125 in 2020, and in 2021 it's 151. But out of these cases, 45, nearly 40 or nearly 60 cases are kidnapping and abduction. Now, why does this happen? What is it really? Are children from Goa being kidnapped and abducted, or are children from outside the state being kidnapped, abducted, and then sent here to work? What is really the
both ways.
status?
More children from outside. If you're talking about kidnapping,
Yes, kidnapping.
kidnapping in terms of
Because
sexual abuse.
kidnapping and
about-
missing, assumed
Yeah.
kidnapped
Missing
is
becomes
the
kidnapping.
largest number of crimes against children in India as well.
Missing becomes kidnapping
Yes.
when it's a minor.
Yeah.
Any child missing becomes a kidnap case when it's a minor, and those are mostly abuse cases, sexual abuse cases. Now I'd like to say something here is that the online grooming of children, the online predators of children, the online, you give a mobile to a small child of 13, it's like giving a gun to an untrained person to shoot. So it will go anywhere, the bullet will go anywhere. That's what's happening to our children. None of us can blame the children. They're just being groomed. First it was in let's say 15 years back, it would be like, send me your photograph. I want to see you. But today it is, send me your hot pic. The child has not been made aware about whom to trust, whom not to trust. What is friendship, what is love. The sexuality of a child also is not discussed at home. Everything is kept in wraps. So this predator gets an opportunity to slowly get into the life of the child, call her somewhere, abuse her, take pictures of that, and then blackmail her to come again, even though she's very small. I have a case of a 13-year-old who was taken by a kidnapper who is 23 years old. Now see, in older times, people used to think of age, of compatibility and things like that. So it's not for marriage here, but the poor child who's not been educated in this, that you should take care of yourself, body respect, dignity. Those are not trained, and the parents today also don't have time because they are working.
And most of these are from this Instagram and all. no?
Yeah, it's
Many
all
cases
from
are
online.
from
Yeah.
all online mostly.
WhatsApp,
and-
Instagram, Facebook, and some other apps which I don't
Yes,
know.
Father,
just
you
want
have
to bring
something
in
to
some
add.
point
Yes.
here.
Yep.
See, last year itself we had around 18 cases of sexual abuse,
Okay.
and there are more than 107 cases of different types of abuse in one area only. I'm talking only of North Goa.
Okay.
Now here what happens is the victims also don't come forward to complain. They are staying back. When it even sexual abuse, the parents back out. There is sometimes some cases are so hard evidence is there, but somehow the culprit overpowers them, threatens them, lures them with some money, tells them to back out. See, what will this case will go on for so many years? What will happen to your child's education? And then the parents back out. So the number what we are talking about is only very minimal.
Yeah, that's true.
There are more and much more cases which go unreported, don't come to the system, and this is a major worry for us. The society is becoming so debased, no? That the child has become so much an entertainment for the society. So this is a worrying situation that we are facing in the society.
these cases.
There have been cases where okay, the girl has been not exactly abused by the boy, but they're both in a physical relationship, but because of their ages, it's legally rape. Okay. And then there are compromises taking place even when the case comes to court. So what's your experience of that?
my experience and my opinion on this part is when the boy is at the age of, say, in his early 20s or say 25, 26, and when the girl is somewhere around between 14 to 18 years, what I believe is, and what my experience is the girl has attained that age of majority, not legally, but mentally she knows what is right, what is wrong for her. Tomorrow, basically this act which is there, it is a double-edged sword. The manner in which this act is sometimes being used, a young boy of merely 20, 21 years of age is being crucified or incarcerated for several years behind the bars. They are in a love relation. Sometimes the family do not agree. But since they are exposed to so much of things online, say social media, say TV, they are influenced by that. And because of this kind of influence, they basically try to enact that thing. The actor, the actress whom they see, and they basically try to play their role. So what I believe in this particular case is, again, the same thing, the awareness in the school or the awareness at that very stage when the child is growing is very much important to understand, to make them understand what is the consequences of their actions. Because by putting that poor guy behind the bars is not the solution to this problem. The problem will end only when awareness is being raised with respect to that particular problem. By putting that accused behind the bars, it won't solve the problem.
So do you
Therefore, when it comes to their arrest of this young offenders, like how Mr. Kautuk says, boy of 23 or 20 and a girl of 15 and below 18 years of age. So normally when bail is given to them, it's granted to them at that young age, because it is looked at very sympathetically, because it is not that situation of a grave nature.
It's not a hardened criminal
Yes,
as such.
Not a hardened. So because of that, we don't keep them behind bars. We release them on bail.
But do you support this reduction of age for of consent from 18 to 16?
In my opinion, I think they should be, because now, as again as Mr. Riker says, that the girl, and even scientifically it is said that the girls are more mature than the boys. Now, keeping that aside, I think the age needs to be reduced, because the girls today, the child under 18, a female child or a child, even we'll say general, because offences are not only against the girls today, even
against boys.
It's also against the male gender. And there's a lot increasing in the male gender today. So the reduction has to be there, because their mental status of the mind is very high today, not like the times which we have come through. So they are easily accessible to the net. So it's their mind has been developing, like from I see, because I speak to the victims, I talk to them, so I can assess them sometimes.
Exposure plays a very
I
vital role in.
personally have a different opinion on this. I think it should not be reduced, because one thing is the physical development of a person, the mental development of a person, the social bringing of a person. These all things have to be considered. Reducing is only permitting, because this is how it is. But when we also talk to many of these victims, we get a different picture. They were taken up by something which they saw, they heard. So they didn't really apply their mind. When we call maturity, what is the type of maturity? The maturity is only on the basis of what they have seen and heard. They have not been able to make a decision of what is right and what is wrong. And that is not just as far as this decision is concerned. There are issues of people, youngsters getting fooled into this frauds, because they don't know what is right and what is wrong. This is a major issue.
What do you have to say, Audha? 16, 18, should be 16, should be 18?
I'm not differing with her about age or anything, but I want to say something.
Yeah.
The Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act came into force in 2012, and it came into force with a purpose to protect our children from sexual offences. I mean, no religion promotes sex before marriage. Even if it's a loved one, why do we have to resort to sex This is one thing. So how are we going to protect our children?
Although are you being unpractical there?
Why?
I mean, you're being moral, yes, fine, I do agree with that, but are you
I'm
being
not
unpractical?
Moral. I'm not moral. I'm only saying that children who are below 18 should not be exposed to relationships if they don't want them. I told you about grooming. Once they're groomed, they are not in a position to decide what is right and wrong. They're just getting carried away by the predator, and then they're caught in a situation. I'm talking about this. And this is where parental influence affects. I'm not moralistic. I want to clear my stand. I'm not moralistic.
Okay.
But I would not like, how many convictions are there? If you are going to prevent this, how many convictions have taken place? See the tally.
Okay,
I'm
Sayonara,
not
that's
talking
there.
about man.
Okay,
I'm not
let's
talking
let's
about man.
No, exactly.
This should
no.
go
Let's
with the
get to-
POCSO code.
My whole idea
Man
was
section
The
offences
convictions will not come because the witnesses will not talk about it. That's
See,
what I'm
and
saying.
once the home, one thing is this notion of name of the family gets spoiled. This I've had the
Stigma.
hardest to face. They want the child not to talk at all. If the child comes and gives a statement, even that is withdrawn.
not only the family, the schools are not
Schools,
informative.
nobody.
We
In
have
fact,
got cases where
yeah,
the
we have a tough
evidence there
time
and then
to
nobody
get the schools to report an act. They are bound by duty. The council is bound by duty to report. Child has already told them they don't report.
Mhm.
Parents don't want the children to report. And I'm not talking about the court. I'm talking, court will decide on what is placed before it. It is a whole investigation, the whole production of the matter before the court, where the court will decide. And I'm not
What
finding fault with
But
it.
What-
talking about
but-
this investigation and all, Goa seems to be quite good because their charge sheet rate is 70%, and the all India rate is about 67%. So it's
So what is
it's
the
not as the
conviction
police
rate?
are not
What
doing
is the
wrong.
conviction rate in
Okay,
Goa?
coming to conviction rate, she
Yeah,
will
that's
able
what
to
I
help
was
us on
saying.
this.
The-
Okay, I'll just give you some stats for that. The cases disposed in 2021 are 35. Those that are pending trial are 853, and the conviction rate is about 13.8%.
No, conviction, as you know, it's a
Yeah, you
because
tell us.
it's difficult to get the witnesses to come and speak. Some of them, they don't come and speak voluntarily, and many of them turn hostile. Now, especially during the pandemic, what happened was many of the migrants, and we have most cases of
Migrant children,
migrants.
they are more vulnerable to this
yeah,
kind
they are
of
more
problem.
vulnerable, and most of them have gone during the COVID back to their hometowns, and getting them now becomes a problem because finding where they stay takes a long time. The IO, the investigating officer, or the police in charge of a particular police station, he has to make efforts now to get them wherever. Come from Uttar Pradesh, come from Kolkata, Maharashtra. So that is also a reason why sometimes you don't get the witnesses, they turn hostile, then the parents and the offender, they compromise it at their end, especially
Okay.
when they are young. Some of them are, there are matters where the offender is also related in the family. So then there is a thing that they will get married later on. So, you know, they don't support, they go, they don't want the victim to come to depose. Sometimes the victim is already married after crossing the age of 18, and the matter still lingers in the court. So when the victim, the complainant, who normally are the parents, mostly the parents of the victim, they don't want to bring the victim to the courts to depose because she's already settled in a
Yes,
so
yes.
so these are some of the reasons where it becomes very difficult to get the convictions.
I'll
You
just
have
give
to
a-
say
Though-
Kautal, because one second,
Though
let her
if I
finish.
can I can just make a mention here, because people also need to be aware that the children's court, what is there, which is the only court in the full country, the atmosphere, the matters which are conducted in this court is very child friendly. So it's not that everything is confidential. We see that we give the help of a support person, counselor is made available, the identity of the child is not disclosed in serious offences of sexual abuse. So, I mean, when all these safeguards are there for the child, and if there are such type of cases, I think people should come approach and give justice to the victims.
So this low conviction rate is very good for you. Means guys like you are doing a very good job.
It's not about.
So can you
It's
tell
not
us?
about whether it is good for me or good for someone else, because we are not in a race. I'll give it a completely different angle to this. What about a person who has been falsely implicated with such kind of charges? I'll give you 3 instances. Forget about my personal cases. I'll give you one national example which has recently happened. The Bangalore incident. A young Bangalore delivery guy, where an 8-year-old girl comes and complains that I was being taken away forcibly or kidnapped by this particular person. All the people gathered, they hammered him. But when the CCTV footage was checked, it was seen that the girl was somewhere else. And this person straight away comes and delivers his whatever thing
And goes away.
and goes. Now, apart from this act is being misused by many people to settle their personal vengeance or to settle their personal scores with a person. I had a case where brother falsely implicates his own brother of molesting his daughter just for the purpose of an ancestral house. What do we do in this situation? Because once a complaint is lodged against a person, whether he is acquitted or whether he is convicted, everybody looks at him with the eye that this person is guilty. What about the social stigma that is casted on a person who has been falsely implicated in a rape case, in a sexual abuse case, or in a molestation case?
I think what he's saying is now the boot is on the other leg. Okay, that's basically what he's saying. But this is
These are exceptions and this should not happen.
it is a serious
I
problem.
look
There
at
are
it
few
as-
exceptions
So no, so the
sometimes.
question to the two of you that I want to ask to
Yeah.
both of you, okay,
Yeah.
is now we have a law which says that the victim's name should not be disclosed. Do you agree with having a law where the accuser's name also is not disclosed until a charge sheet is filed?
It's very true. It
See,
should. It should.
No, I'm
It's hard to answer because
Yes.
Yes
no,
and no.
In
Yes
my
and no.
opinion, I feel that if you disclose the name of the offender, then people are aware that there is, because sometimes it is a danger. You keep sometimes a person like this and you do not know what the person is
so you're
doing.
saying guilty before
I'm not saying guilty, but
Nobody is
let
saying
it be.
guilty.
Nobody is saying guilty. It is just a report. See, newspaper reports. How much
it's a
are we to
report.
trust?
Yeah, it's a report.
How much are we to trust the newspaper reports? It's a report. Let it be there. It makes no difference.
it makes difference to the, as he's saying,
Exactly.
to the offender. What if he's
If-
innocent?
What happens in this
His
situation?
life-
People don't go to read the judgment. They read the newspaper more often than the judgments. So people make their view just reading on the headlines. And what I would like to point out in this case is the manner in which the cases are reported. I think so that is wrong. Because just for the footage or for the mileage, the manner in which the
It's
things have been
sensational.
made
Press sensationalized.
exactly.
Yeah.
No, the
Father,
press
what you got to
sometimes-
say,
The press
yes.
sometimes gives a judgment before any
Exactly.
trial has gone through.
So it becomes a
This
media
is
trial.
bad journalism.
It's
This
more
is
of
it is
it.
bad reporting. These are things which happen. There can be a case what
They
he's pointing out
sensationalize. They should
of
not.
wrongly implicating someone, but that is a matter of how the press reports.
Okay,
But
this,
that exceptions could not be seen as something which is to
Yeah, not the rule.
be used as a rule.
can we? So it's a good time to take blows at me. Fine, but so do you agree, Father, that keep everybody's name, I mean, don't disclose the
disclose.
identity of the offender, the victim, anyway, till a charge sheet is filed. Yes, continue
Yes.
with the practice of keeping the victim's name confidential
That is confidential.
till the
Yes,
end.
kept confidential.
You said yes and you said no, Avda. Why?
Because I don't agree. I don't agree with him that you cannot. How will I complain about somebody if I don't mention his name? He's guilty. According to me, I'm reporting my crime, so I'm going to write the name of the person
no.
who did the crime.
No,
How
no.
will you know?
No,
How will
that's-
the police catch him?
That's not what I'm saying.
No, that is not
As
correct.
your
Reporting.
complainant, you can put all your names.
Yeah.
I'm saying is the
Not
police
Press
and the
should
media
not-
should.
No, press should not sensationalize anything before time.
So a law, protecting everyone is good or
I don't agree that.
she also doesn't
So my
agree.
type of
Father,
work,
what
I
about
don't
you?
agree.
No, reporting a matter as it is has to happen.
Yeah, I don't agree with it.
The name of a minor is not reported. Of a major, there is no law which forbids. the
No, I
forbidding
think
part
major
of,
also.
no,
We can't.
Okay.
it's only for minor.
Yeah. It's
Okay,
only for
so-
minors.
so-
It's only for minor.
So, what do we do about this, Sayonara? You have 853 cases that are pending
Can I say
No, I
something?
think it is not correct. The
for
figure.
all
It's,
accumulation.
It's a little over 400.
Can I say
As-
Yes,
something?
yeah,
A little
yes,
over
In defense
yes.
of men, there have been pile-ups there. Goa is the only state that has a Goa Children's Court, and that Goa Children's Court is because of Goa Children's Act. What I was thinking is that all cases pertaining to children, except the POXO cases, should go to Goa Children's Court. And the POXO cases, that we are having a POXO court now,
separate.
and that is mandated by the Supreme Court of India. So why are we not sending those cases there and relieving the backlog of this court? There are several cases reported here.
There is a
So
demand
how much
for.
will they handle? How much will they handle?
There is a demand for opening
There is already
a
a
children's
POXO
court in South Goa. Is
No.
that necessary? Will that change
There
things?
is already a POXO
I don't
court
think so,
in
no.
Tanjore.
Because as I
Yeah.
said, there's just around 400 or and a little more than that.
But what it shows that your
No, I
the
don't know.
judiciary is clearing about 30 to
No,
40
from
cases
wherever, from
from the National Crime
no, I don't
Bureau.
know which.
National Crime Bureau.
No, because our court is different. Whether our children's court is there or they can all
All the court.
related of all
This
the
is all.
courts
This
now.
is IPC plus
No, from all the
Local.
courts.
Cases
POXO
are-
court also is
everything is
included.
included.
One
Yes.
is POXO court.
Because there's another POXO
All
court
crimes
which is-
against children. This is the
Oh.
total.
No, I thought you were speaking only about the
No,
children's
not
court.
only the
No.
children's court. So it's all.
Even
There's
in
another
the district
another
court
tiny
also.
issue that sometimes comes up, and this is about recording of evidence of children, or it could be even a woman who's raped. She first has to give a statement to the police, and then she has to come and relive the whole experience in court.
164
same-
also is done.
And this also happens
Three
for
places,
children. So,
yeah.
is there some way where when the child or the victim can make just one statement and finish off with it, or
No,
does
if
the
the-
child have to come to court?
Yeah, the law says 161 has to be recorded and 164
Oh,
also
has
has to be recorded. That is as per law, and we cannot change the law. We have to follow the law. Only the process we make it a little comfortable for the victim, but law we cannot.
We cannot change.
We cannot change.
No,
the
do
law.
you recommend a change in the law? Do you think it would help? What about you?
No, I don't believe, because what the law says is absolutely correct. This is a statement, which is 161 statement is basically before the police,
Police.
which helps the police to investigate the case.
Yeah.
Now,
160.
thereafter, 164 statement is recorded before the
Magistrate.
magistrate, so the victim does not resile from the statement. Because what happens in certain cases, after the case is registered, there are some people who approach the victim to settle out the case. So that she doesn't resile from the statement, 164 is recorded. Now, to cross-examine that particular witness is the right of the accused, and that right cannot be taken away. So that's the reason the victim needs to come into the court to state the entire thing what she has stated before the police. And until and unless she is cross-examined by the defense or the accused, we do not know what is the truth and what is the false part of it. So I do not think so that we need to interfere with the procedure of law that has been laid down.
Okay, spoken like a true defense lawyer. Okay. I think we
But
have.
if I
You
can
have some
say
add
something,
something.
yeah.
Okay, yes.
There is the vulnerable witness guidelines are there, which have been framed as per the Honorable Supreme Court directions. The Delhi High Court has framed this. It's a protocol for the vulnerable witnesses, and the child victims or witnesses, they fall under that. Now there under that there is some special clause which says that if the child witness, sometimes by some circumstances the child may not be in position to come and depose before the court, maybe some problem, mental problem or some other reason. So then you can use that 164 statement. That 164
Okay,
statement can be used without calling the
Child to the court.
child to the
Okay.
court.
And we are running out of time, so I think we should bring this to a close. I'd like to thank Auda, Advocate Kautak, Sayonara Tellis, and Father Maverick for spending time and throwing more light on this issue, very serious issue of crimes against children. Thank you.